Article every day, in which there was a discussion about the new county department, the governance structures, and how things are complex. And as you know, I've been out there with many of you. Nancy and I went to a lot of meetings, whether they were the Measure A discussions about the budget, the restructure of governance, what's going to happen with LASA. Then there are different bodies that we felt, oh, okay, we need to know what's going on. And what we wanted to do was just present. Ronson, if it's okay for me to share my screen,
Yeah.
a piece of work we've been working on is just, it's an ongoing effort in which we want to do a better job of showing and educating ourselves as well as our members about what we're seeing. So we put together a graphic as we start talking about what's going on with homelessness, the different structures. We know Ronson is on, La Casa. We really wanted to lay out what we're seeing. And then also, I think this is a good information piece because many of us are attending different meetings. I think my schedule has been one week, it was every day except I forgot what day was it, Nancy, Monday. And I normally don't do that on top of my other busy responsibilities. So here it is what we're dealing with. We know we have the Board of Supervisors at the county level. And then I'm going to mention the city of Los Angeles because it's a big part when we talk about the joint powers agreement between between them and the county and the formation of the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, but also recognizing that the county works many with the independent cities that are many of you are part of and you're leading. So understanding that fabric, and I think where it gets complex for many of us is we know that a lot of the services are coming from the county, meaning the social services part. There are housing efforts, and then we have so you have the different county departments, and we listed the main ones we knew were dealing with homelessness or were recently named in motions that looked at restructure. So you see all the county departments under the chief executive office, and then the homeless initiative, which is directly under the chief executive office. And then we'll deal with the LASA piece later on. And then that the Housing for Health, many of you work with, have contracts with, they fall under the Department of Health Services. And then since the adoption of Measure H, Measure A, and the Senate bill, I get the number wrong. Ronson probably can tell me which Senate bill that is, which ended up forming the Los Angeles County Affordable Housing Solutions Agency. And so we wanted to share with you the what we're seeing is that there are these bodies that are addressing homelessness, but right now they don't necessarily, although they're staffed and mainly managed by the county or county funds, they're not really centralized anywhere. So, and one of the pieces that we've been thinking through was as many of you've heard in April, there's the board adopted a couple weeks ago the formation of a new county department to start in 25, 26. And so they're in their implementation phase. And so what we don't know, and we're going to continue to discuss this, is what functions from the different departments will fall under this new county department, how that's all going to work out, how now that funding from LASA will be moved to this new county entity, what's the role that LASA is going to play in all of this? Clearly, I think for us, we're seeing, well, who's going to coordinate all these efforts and how that's going to how that's going to be reported back to the different bodies. And we will send an email out with a PDF of this graphic. Just many of you can comment. I know folks from the county are here, so feel free. This is just a picture that, the South Bay Coalition is seeing. I'm sure you have something more robust coming. Um, we also put together a list, and I won't go over it, of all the governing bodies that you see here and who's listed as a member and who they represent. And we thought this would be a very helpful tool for everybody as you look at who's representing whom. We know that Nancy will give an update on the Continuum of Care Board under LASA, but they're just different bodies. We just wanted to we wanted to present an education of this, but also just reiterate the complexities of the homeless system in our county and really moving forward, as we move forward, how do we put together our ideas or strategies on how to make this coordinated better and how this will impact our own regional planning at a spa level. So I'm going to stop sharing. Nancy, I don't know if you wanted to add, you were a big contributor to this.
Actually, I'm sorry, can you put that graphic back up? I just wanted to make kind of just a couple comments about the way the chart is organized and why we included certain organizations. So Grace and I have been working on this, like I say, for a little bit now. And we're showing a couple different things here. And I'm sure, as Grace mentioned, when the county and the city of Los Angeles, everyone's probably going to come up with their own version of something like this. But we just wanted to kind of get some of the key ones that we've been following right now. But it kind of shows a couple different things and not necessarily well, I want to highlight some things. One is actually obviously where's the money, where's the contracts, who's responsible for for having those contracts, and then there's also who then is going to be responsible for actually doing the work. So of course we don't have the service providers on here and all that, but it is mostly the governance structure. So under here, and I'm sure a lot of you are already familiar with this, under the Measure A board, kind of the bottom part there is the, I'm not going to use the acronyms because I get tongue twisted. So, you basically have the executive committee, and that kind of, when you do look at the composition, that is very high level, super high level, board of supervisors, a couple of representatives from the city of Los Angeles, some representatives from, the other cities. But people at that level realistically don't craft the policy, certainly don't craft the implementation of those policies. So you see under there that there is this leadership table. And actually what we didn't show underneath the leadership table, which is composed of kind of the leading partners in basically in homeless services, and again, we invite you to look at the list. But even under the leadership table, there's actually 11 subcommittees that break down the various the ways that they're viewing it. So that particular entity, the executive committee and the leadership table, of course, they had to come up with certain goals and metrics per the new Measure A, which again have been recently published, and we're happy to share any of this with you. I know a lot of you have been kind of following it already, but separate from that, also then you do have La Casa, you have the housing side of the piece, and also the prevention. So, so a lot of folks are really familiar with that, but we also wanted to include LASA on there as well. I mean, and of course we started crafting this before the discussions about the county, the county's decision to pull back their money. But there's actually two things here. So one, again, is kind of the administrative, the contracts, who's going to track who's the performance on the contracts and so forth. So this is starting to kind of show the different entities that are involved, but not necessarily, again, who ultimately is going to be in charge. But then once you have that, there's still the policy about what specific operational requirements are we then going to give to the boots on the ground people who are doing the work. And a lot of those people are the service providers. It's going to be some of your cities, may also have some individuals who are doing, like, for instance, street outreach or case management. So who's actually coming up with the day-to-day policies that they're supposed to be implementing? And right now, for me anyway, LASA is still kind of doing kind of providing the leadership for that. And that's why under the LASA portion, you have two boxes under there. You have the Coordinated Entry Council, which again kind of sets the policy, the operational policies. But then you also have the Continuum of Care Board, which I'll talk about it in a minute as well. But the COC board really deals with and is focused on all of the federal programs. So, but which is just to say there's just a lot of complexity in here that we'll share with you from time to time, just how all that is shaping up and basically who's in charge and who's doing what. So thank you, Grace. And we can take any questions that folks have, and certainly Ronson, and there's other people on this call too who are who are very well versed in kind of what's going on and what the goals and the actual responsibilities are for each of these organizations.
Thanks, Nancy and Grace.
Okay.
Anything else? I do want to add that we do have there's LASA obviously is still an important body, and then we have representation from you all for on the CS Policy Council and the CLC board, and that's very important. And then under Measure A, the idea though is that there would be an even greater body that would oversee even all of that, and that's the executive
Mm-hmm.
committee. And that is, and the executive committee has purview, and Paige, I have to stand corrected because I know we talked about this yesterday, but has purview over the Measure A money going to the county and LACTA, but not the CASA. So as purview over
Right.
the
That's right.
services, basically the legacy Measure H part of Measure A. And Paige Kalajurovic, a council member from Redondo Beach, who's on the call. She is our representative on ECRA.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Paige, you want to say anything? I mean, if you want
On,
to.
just to that point, so did you just say, Ronson, that you clarified the purview of ECRA as far as the funds from Measure A?
Yeah, because we were talking about how like we thought we weren't sure if like you also had overview of the CASA, but
Right.
I'm reading the oversight section of Measure A, and if you guys don't have it, I know it's in the LA Times. The LA Times article today by Doug Smith was really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Make sure you
Mm-hmm.
all read that. But
Mm-hmm.
then also, these measures, the Measure A, I have it right here. It's not very thick. It's like 20 pages. So really do take some time out to read that. But there is an oversight section in which it defines the executive committee. And it says the executive committee should oversee and make recommendations regarding the expenditure of funds allocated to the county and LACTA. And then the article today in the LA Times, you'll see me quoted that I don't think that happened this time around. And so that was something that we thought was that didn't necessarily follow the letter of the law of Measure A. And so so yeah, so make sure you read that. But yeah.
Yep.
Um, yeah, do we have any questions for Nancy and Grace? And then I also just want to say I'm your rep. I'm the board alternate for La Casa. So if you have any questions on La Casa, Roberto Chavez is here. He is your rep for the leadership table. If you have any questions or comments on the leadership table, Roberto is your representative from that. If you don't know Roberto, he is awesome. He oversees the Housing Authority of Inglewood, but he is also leads up the Housing Authority of California, the association, and knows a lot about housing and housing development.
I'll pay you later, Ronson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then so if you can continue to send us comments or feedback as we put together information, we'll send out what we've been tracking. Nancy, did you want to give out an update on the COC board?
Sure, thank you. So I think many of you were on our Homeless Coalition's email, and many of you knew Carrie Escalante. She was our representative, our regional service planning area 8 South Bay representative to this governing body, and she changed jobs early this year, so she unfortunately could not represent our region anymore. So the way the LASA bylaws work for this particular governance body is there's two different ways that we can fill that regional representative job. Election, and I'm happy to say that Grace did receive the most votes, and so she is our representative that we are putting forward to the COC board at next month's May meeting, and for confirmation to be our official representative. So that's long-winded answer to say Grace is it. So she'll be attending those monthly meetings. Yeah, for those of you who may not be quite familiar, I did mention this before, but even with all the kind of craziness and restructuring going on at LASA, the COC board is going to continue only and because it's a HUD mandated governance structure. And so the COC board pretty much there's three main functions it looks over. Now, what is the annual homeless count, which again, many of you participated in, and you know that is also kind of HUD dictated that we do that at the end of January actually every other year. And they also HUD has also developed data standards for what type of core set of data elements that every COC across the country maintains in terms of who they're tracking and who they're helping that are experiencing homelessness. It's many of you know it by its acronym HMIS, Homeless Management Information System. Again, that's kind of HUD dictated that we use that. So the purview of that and how that's maintained and so forth is also under the direction of the COC board. And then lastly, the board's primary function is to kind of shepherd along the annual, it's called the annual nationwide competition for the HUD dollars. And so Grace again will be our rep for that. So to let us know what's going on. So I'm happy to take any questions. Sherry was actually one of our previous board members. I see she's there. So she can answer questions about what the COC board does. But again, you'll be hearing from time to time from Grace on the updates. So thank you.
And thank you. And thank you, Nancy, for that update. And we'll be informing you about the COC on a regular basis. The last thing, and I'll move it over back to Ronson, is on May 20th, in person, the City of Torrance will be our host. We are having a meeting focused on outreach coordination in SPA 8. And so I know that barring any board of supervisor meetings that require him to be there, I know Carter from the Homeless Initiative Office is planning to give a presentation. And our goal is really, we started this back last year, is really how do we work together to help support more coordination among the cities, among the agencies in SPA 8 that do, and even a lot of our faith groups that are involved in some level of homeless outreach. So again, May 20th, which is a Tuesday, and it's going to be at 1:30, the City of Torrance, and we'll send out a flyer and you'll hear more about it.
Yeah. So we're hoping that many of you can come because we try and make our in-person meetings very participatory. And for this one in particular, we do have a lot of table discussion that we'd like to kind of initiate. So this is kind of your opportunity as well to let us know what's working, what isn't working. Are you totally confused because LA Hop still takes a long time? We used to have generalists, what's going on with the LASA street outreach team HET, that's kind of in flux. And, again, where are some of the gaps that we can help to identify and then hopefully make recommendations to all the powers that be on all of those different charts, boxes that Grace had shown, just so we can do our strong advocacy at the highest level to make sure those gaps are eventually addressed. So, thank you.
Yeah, and I'm also wanted to add there are groups and faith groups out there, churches that want to get more involved. And so the more they can come into a system that's coordinated, it will help all of us. And so I'm hoping that we have more community members there too, so that way we can connect many of them to their local cities or their local communities because they call asking how they can help. There's an effort to start grocery collections because people are worried about the economy. So just, hopefully we can get community folks more engaged in what we're doing.
Just I had a quick question to the group regarding the county entity that Grace mentioned. They're taking feedback right now for the head of the county entity, the new director. Anyone participate in those conversations with the county? Yeah, I heard Sherry. Oh, good. So we had a few of you guys. So yeah, make sure you do that. I believe they had two this week, but there's also a survey going around. If you'd like a link to that survey, maybe we can even put it up. I don't know, Addie or Miranda, you guys have the link? Maybe you guys can put it in the chat to that survey.
I'll pull it up.
Okay, cool.
There's
Awesome.
one at 6 o'clock tonight.
Oh, okay, great. Thanks,
I'll
Rick.
put that in the chat.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so make sure you give your feedback on what you want to look for in a director of this new county entity. And that director is going to be very important. He's going to report directly to the supervisors. Also, as part of the motion, a new task force is being formed, which will include the 8 lead agencies of the SPAs. So that's Harbor Interfaith. And they will help advise this new director. So that's another avenue where we can provide feedback as to our lead agencies. So do I have that right, Sherry? Anything I'm missing?
No, I think you got it all. I know there's a lot of meetings going on. And even though I'm retired, it seems like I'm hitting all of them just to kind of track what's going on. But I think if nothing else, if you can't attend tonight's meeting, please take the survey because a lot of the same questions that they're asking at the meeting are included in that survey. And I think it's important for us to give our feedback at this point.
Yeah. And then if everyone is interested, we did do a letter 2 years ago during Birch about this. Our board did. And so we can maybe share that as well. It's still very timely, even though it was 2 years ago. All right. Ronnie, you're here. Good to see you.
Ronson, just quickly before we move on, I think Carrie had an update to share.
Yes, thank you, Addie. And good to see everyone, including you, Sherry. It's been a while since I've seen you. And you too, Nancy. But I did have an update, and it relates to the CS Policy Council. So Nancy, thank you for sharing more on COC and just the updates happening. But for CS Policy Council, that position was appointed by the position was appointed by the Domestic Violence Homeless Service Coalition, and that position was intended to be a representative of victim service providers, right, to support survivors. I will share with you all an update is that I have left the position, and they have appointed a new person for that. It it's just in the fact of my own capacity, I can no longer support with that, but I will continue to work with the new appointee, which is Cristina Cortez. She's worked with LASA and the DV unit before, so it's in really good hands. Updates as far as her capacity to come to these meetings, I'm not sure what that will look like, but I will continue to try to attend just because this is one of the meetings that I find the most information. So if I can get those updates for you all before for these meetings, I will definitely continue to do so. So that's an update for CS Policy Council. And I apologize. I know I don't do a great job at explaining what CS Policy Council is. So just briefly, CS Policy Council is a body that goes ahead and develops the policies and guidance to ensure that individuals are connecting to the resources in an equitable way. And these are the guidances that most of the programs that you are working with are following. So if you have any questions around that, please put them on the chat. I don't want to take up too much space either. But I do want to go ahead and do just a really quick update, if that's okay, just in relations to some news that we received yesterday. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar, but the Department of Justice made a lot of cuts to OBC. Well, as far as we know, a lot of the OBC, Office of Victims of Crimes programs. We've been hearing this affecting a lot of the victim service providers in relation to transitional housing, pet programs, and I believe it's culturally specific programs, so they are more discretionary funds. So I do want to put that on your radar. I haven't seen a lot of coverage around this. I believe I could find one article on that, but I definitely want to go ahead and just bring that because one, in assessing what communities it has affected, and two, and also just kind of understanding like the influx of support that we're gonna see, or the influx of needs that we're gonna see coming in the door. So really want to raise that for you. All right, I'll hand it back.
Hey, Ronson, can I add something? I'm sorry, I can't figure out my raise hand feature for whatever reason. But I know when you mentioned the coordinated entry system, Harbor Interfaith, of course, serves as the lead. But if there are any questions with regards to the structure, Sharon Stewart of our staff will be the best person to get in contact with. And I think she's on the Zoom. And Sharon, if you can put your contact information in the chat. So if anyone has any questions, she is the VP of all systems, the adults, family, as well as the youth. And as we work on the change with the county, with LASA, with the city, if there are any questions with regards to the structure or anything where we can be helpful, then she would be the best person. Thank you.
Thanks, Tahia. One more thing before I turn it over to Rodney to introduce the next section is I do want to make an announcement. We have actually promoted someone in my team, and that's Addie to project manager. So I want to congratulate her on her hard work, and this promotion is reflective of that. And she's been great. She's been talking to a lot of council members and providing advice and feedback on our homelessness programs, attending city council meetings. And so we see her as a leader in homeless services and wanted to promote her to that position. So congrats, Addie. You deserve it.
Thanks, Ronson. Thank you all for having me. Okay, now back to the meeting. Thank you all, though.
Come on, Addie, don't be so modest. Jeez,
Yeah,
when you're good, you're good.
Successfully, I've
I'm
been demoted.
shy.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I've learned a lot. I've grown a lot. The COG has presented me with incredibly unique opportunities to partner with you all and learn so much more and grow muscles that I hadn't in the past. So I appreciate that opportunity and I look forward to continuing to grow. So I really do appreciate it. But enough about me. Let us get back to this meeting.
Okay, we love you. Okay,
Thanks.
my apologies for running a little bit late. I was at City Hall. So, Ronson, what item were we on? 4?
Yeah, we are on 3 actually, time limited subsidies.
Okay, so we're doing SPA 8.
Yeah, and then we have here Shannon Murray, who's going to read an announcement that just came out fresh off the press today from LASA about TLS. We actually had this other presentation in mind, but due to changes in the system, we had to pivot a little bit. Shannon, you want to just give us an update on what's going on with TLS?
Sure. So the memo was off the press on April 11th. So it's about 2 weeks old. So most of you guys have probably heard that at this moment, there are no new TLS enrollments. And they are going to be assessing where they have funds left to see if they can then enroll new people for this fiscal year. Also, for July 1st, 2025, all TLS will be fully utilized, but any new move-ins next fiscal year will be based on slot turnover within each of our programs. LASA is still assessing the impact and will provide communication to all stakeholders within the homeless service system to ensure clear expectations. So for now, we have no new people going into the time-limited subsidy program. That could change if they assess in the next couple of weeks. I think they're actually going to tell us next week whether anyone can accept new people in. We were given about 3 days to move everybody who was kind of in a holding pattern into their units if we could make that happen. So more information to come. At this point, LASA is they're not out talking about it, and they haven't made a public statement to the clients, which is something we've all been pushing for because it's really tough because like we had 12 people in a holding pattern kind of waiting for TLS that aren't going to be able to be housed at this point. So we're still pushing to see if that, if they will do that for us. But for now, there are no new TLS entries.
Hey Shannon, we had Lila actually had texted me late last week. She was saying she had someone in TLS, but they were going to stop paying her rent. Any visibility on stuff like that?
That's not supposed to be happening. So that would be for a different reason. So let's talk about that offline. They are not going to unhouse anybody who's already housed. They are still going to pay, whatever they've promised they were going to pay for whatever months. But at this point, it's just no new people.
Okay. And Sharon has her hand up.
Yeah, if I could just add to that, prevention is also on hold too. So there's no new enrollments into prevention services either. And so we're really not going to hear anything more about prevention probably until the next fiscal year, but they have held all prevention enrollments as well. So we're not able to enroll anybody there either. And then as far as the TLS, if you are housed, payments are supposed to continue. So if someone is receiving information saying that their TLS rental assistance is ending, that is not correct. Providers are still supposed to be providing rental assistance for those families or individuals that are currently housed in TLS.
Sharon, I actually have a question. Do you guys have any problem solving dollars left?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so problem solving is still a go, and they have what, about 2 more months to spend it. So
Correct, yeah.
okay, and maybe could you give a little more information on that to folks?
So for problem solving, it helps with it can help with move-in assistance, security deposit, and up to 4 months of rent. It also can pay for miscellaneous items such as car repairs, utilities, anything that's gonna enable the family to remain housed and not fall into homelessness. We still also have some dollars under housing navigation. Housing navigation really would be, once someone is found housing, if all they need is the security deposit, we can help through our housing navigation dollars too. So that is still ongoing.
And I just want to add that there's also the COG client aid, which any case manager or city and SPY can access, which is just-in-time funding for things just like that, up to about $5,000 per person. We also have a COG version of TLS. It's a low acuity TLS. Right now, it's up to a year of TLS. So it's really more for low acuity folks that are like 5 or 6 months away from self-sufficiency. Um, and we currently have a contract out with WLCAC, Shannon's team, as well as the city of Torrance. But any organization or city interested in utilizing RTLS, let us know and we can forward you a contract. It's a reimbursement type contract. But just let us know. We can talk about the details offline.
Okay, other questions? Thank you, Shannon. We appreciate that update. Let's move on to, excuse me, to our South Bay Regional Housing Trust introduction. Adam Eliason, are you on with us?
I am, yes.
He's
Hello.
our principal from Civic Home. Go ahead, it's all yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Adam Eliason. I'm a principal at Civic Home, and our company has been hired by the COG to explore the formation of a regional housing trust in the South Bay City subregion. And this has been something that's been under consideration for quite some time. And the REAP2 funding that came through SCAG has funded this initiative. And we're in the midst of going through some due diligence that I wanted to give you an update on, and a little bit of Trust 101 education. And at the end, I can be available for questions. So my presentation is short, and I'm going to share my screen now. If I can do that. All right. Okay. So the natural first question is, what's a housing trust? So our work has been involved in several housing trusts in Southern California, and they all center around funding and financing the preservation and production of affordable housing. So it's really the capital dollars to build the units that is helping cities to meet their goals. They can be established by state, city, county governments as a joint powers authority or as a nonprofit 501c3. So up and down the state of California, we see these different formats for what a housing trust looks like. The funding sources can include government bond tax measures like Measure A, private donation, and philanthropy. We've been looking at housing trusts up and down the state of California. Kind of that's our niche, is studying this kind of model. And we've identified 78 housing trust funds in 27 counties throughout California. And we found a source that identified 800 throughout the United States. It's interesting that even though there are 78 housing trust funds, that doesn't necessarily mean they're all in the same size and geography kind of reach. We found that about half of those are set up by one city who has a line item on their budget called Housing Trust Fund. And so it becomes the fund to provide the capital for affordable housing in their one city. So not as relevant as what we're talking about here, which is more of a regional collaborative housing trust fund. So about half of these that in the 78. And you can see on the right how they're spread out throughout the county in the different geographies. Some of the counties have multiple housing trusts. So let's talk about what the benefits are. A housing trust that provides a regional benefit is providing that gap subsidy financing to help development of affordable housing. Usually studies have shown that the affordable housing that is being created within communities is helping residents that already exist within the communities. And then a housing trust will help make affordable housing projects more competitive to obtain other funding. So take a tax credit deal, tax credit finance multifamily rental projects will benefit on their scoring as a result of having local investment of funding. And we found that regional housing trusts often provide that first in financing that really helps the developer to go get some of the other sources of funding out there, particularly score well on tax credit and other sources. The projects that get funded usually all have covenants recorded on them, and if they're new construction, then they're counting towards the RENA numbers that help cities to meet their obligations that they have. And then it supports, a housing trust will support the regional and local funding dollars that can come in from federal, state, and county into the region. So with a housing trust and regional collaboration, it becomes a real benefit to talk to legislators and other funding sources to pool those dollars in and use economies of scale to manage those dollars throughout the region. And then a housing trust, a regional effort on funding the affordable housing projects becomes one of the players in sitting at the table and talking with other providers and other entities that are involved in the affordable housing space, other nonprofits and service providers and cities and government agencies that all come together and communicate on how we can be most effective. And then lastly, something that really resonates with quite a few cities, especially if you're old enough to remember redevelopment days when we had a lot of affordable housing kind of expertise in the region. When we lost a lot of that expertise, we lost a lot of city staff at the local jurisdiction who could understand and know how to navigate affordable housing projects, affordable housing finance, negotiate with developers, and really make the best use of the funding and the efforts out there. And so the Housing Trust can be a resource to bring that expertise to help cities and provide technical expertise and advice on getting projects through their city, not only giving the funding, but really lessening the burdens of some of the staff by doing NOFAs and negotiating regulatory agreements with the developers on the project, and then do all the compliance requirements and have that consistency of one loan agreement, all the compliance issues, and the NOFA for the region. So we're trying to make things more simple and collaborative in that way. We're exploring, as we go through this due diligence with the South Bay cities, a variety of programs to consider. I've identified on this slide some of those types of programs we'll be looking at. When we look at programs, we look at what's the available funding sources. Can they be used in the region for what the region wants or wants to see? So take measure A, where we're trying to understand what the parameters are of that funding, how much money is available. As we go through this process and we do our due diligence, we'll be examining these and the corresponding funding as well. I get the question a lot of where does the funding come from for a housing trust? And I briefly mentioned it at the beginning, but here's a slide that just kind of shows some various sources of funding that have been available in the past to regional housing trusts. And you can see the various ones in detail there as well. The COG has established a strategic planning advisory committee, and that group consists of city officials, city managers, community development directors, developers, and finance representatives. And the goal is to have that broad experience. This becomes the quasi policy committee for us, the COG, and Civic Home to report to and bring these findings and explore and brainstorm the formation of the trust and what it would look like and what we would need to do. And so some of the things that we're going to be bringing to this committee are a summary of developer and trust interviews that we're doing to kind of broaden and look at best practices. We are completing a housing needs assessment for the subregion and bringing those findings to the committee and talking about that. And then there's a draft joint powers agreement that if the trust moves forward, then this joint powers agreement becomes the a legal document that brings the cities together with that common mission. And so what does that look like? What are the elements of the joint powers agreement? And talk about how we can tweak it to meet the needs of South Bay. And then we'll be exploring the funding opportunities and the trust programs. And then we'll be drafting a strategic plan, like a blueprint for how the trust would go forward. Some of the components that would be in the draft JPA mention the purpose of the trust, the specific general and specific powers that are allowed and not allowed of the trust, how the board of directors are made up, how staffing is handled, the financial provisions, any amendments that need to be changed to the JPA in the future, and how liability is handled between the cities and the trust, and then how a city would be admitted into the trust and how they would withdraw from the trust. And then a timeline for how this is all being rolled out. So we started our work in January, and we're working through September to do all this due diligence and research and findings and meet with the Strategic Planning Advisory Committee in those 4 meetings I mentioned. And then all of that information that comes from the Strategic Planning Advisory Committee will be brought to the COG Board of Directors probably July, August, September area, and presented to the COG board. And then assuming that there is consensus to move forward, then we would be making presentations to the cities within the subregion and staff to talk about how the trust would be formed and the elements of the trust and all these things that we're sharing right now, the details that come out of that. And ultimately with the goal of going to various city councils to present the opportunity to join the trust. And once we have at least 4 members, 4 cities that join the trust, then it becomes a legal entity. And then from there, we get many more cities, hopefully, to join the trust. it's a high level overview of what we're working on. We felt it really important to come to you all and give you the opportunity to know a little bit about what we're working on. My contact information is here, and I'm happy to answer any questions depending on how much time is available. But if you have questions after this meeting, I'm more than available to talk to you and brainstorm any ideas and feedback you have as well.
Thanks, Adam. This is new concept for us in the South Bay and for the COG, but I'm sure there's a lot of questions, and we will field a few today. So those having questions, please raise your hand or kind of jump in. I can't see all three screens, but if you have a question, let us know.
Thanks, Adam. And I just want to add that this is a process, and I encourage everyone on the task force and the coalition to really ask look into it throughout the course of this process. It's going to be a several months process as Adam laid out, and the idea of this trust is it will help us build much needed affordable housing here in the South Bay. And so at some point, we may even activate this task force and the coalition to help us advocate for the housing trust with our different member cities. It's not a slam dunk necessarily. And so this is something we will want to make sure that there's buy-in and acceptance of it, when we talk about establishing a housing trust fund here in the South Bay. I see Bill with his hands up.
Bill, go ahead. You're on mute, Bill.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Yes. A couple of years ago, hold on, let me move this. A couple of years ago, I used to go to these meetings. The last one I was to, I gave up. They said, come up with 5 new ways to help homelessness. And I said, why don't you figure out why the last 5 haven't worked? And they didn't appreciate that. So I never went back. I have great faith in Grace Weltman, who I know, which is the reason I came back. Tolstoy said, the death of one man is a tragedy. The death of a million is a statistic. And when I look all through this stuff, I see a lot of statistics. Now, Grace, who knows me, knows that right now I'm living myself in tiny houses of Torrance, homeless shelter. One of the reasons is so I can see the faces and talk to them and hear their voices. So I'm trying here to make it so that one man isn't a tragedy. And I want to give it a face. His name is Steve. He's here in Torrance. A couple of weeks ago, he was really sick. I could tell. I tried to get to the hospital. I went to security here. They just intimidated him. The next day, security didn't like it. I said, you got to go. Well, 45 minutes later, he had a massive heart attack, ended up going in for triple bypass surgery, which they were really upset. Now, he was out of here for a while. His wife also lives here. They put his wife out 5 days into this and made her homeless. I can't imagine what that must have done to him. And I told security here, her husband's like, she's got mental problems. Her husband's laying in a hospital, may die and leave her here homeless. Please don't do it. But they did. A couple days later, he came back here, didn't know where his wife was. They wouldn't do anything. There's a gentleman here that's on this errand who works for Harbor Interfaith. And he's the only guy around here we have any hope in trusting. So I'm sure he's listening here. What happened was, I said the next day, he came back, they let him sleep out in the cold. He wanted to hear if his wife's voice came to the fence. So he just got out of surgery and out of the hospital. He's sitting outside the cold. I went to UCLA with him next day, 8-hour bus ride, got a doctor's letter saying he can't be out in the cold. He has to be with his wife so he doesn't stress out. I came back and I gave it to Aaron. Aaron couldn't do anything about it either. It was Palm Sunday, or it was Good Friday. Nobody could do anything. Aaron's hands were tied. So he spent another night sleeping outside and waiting for his wife's thing. On Saturday, I was really worried he might die. So I reached in my own pocket, and I don't have a lot of money. I'm in a homeless shelter and paid for Saturday night and Sunday night at a motel, figuring everything would be fine when he got back on Monday. Monday, they couldn't do anything. They came up with the same thing. Aaron couldn't help me. They wouldn't let his wife come back on the site over some minor thing when she was upset about her husband she got into. They wouldn't come up with a motel voucher so they could be alone. They wouldn't, I said on the doctor's letter said she should be his caretaker so he wasn't stressed. He's been sleeping out there for the last 3 nights on the grass outside of the shelter because he'd rather be out there with his wife knowing where she is than out homeless in the streets. I've come to Aaron. I've done everything I can. Right now, security runs this place. And if nothing else, like I told Aaron, you're looking at a wrongful death suit here right now that will cost you millions and millions of dollars. You guys are all on notice. What do you think a jury is going to do to you? When you let a homeless man die out in the front yard, his wife is homeless, you wouldn't let her on, and you knew that he'd just come out of a heart attack. All they need to do is give him a motel voucher for 2 weeks while he recovers. And instead, I've been almost put out of here 5 times because I try and help these people. So
Bill, I
Grayson
hate
has a
to
really good
interrupt
heart.
you. Bill, I
Like
hate
the
to
first
interrupt
time.
you.
That's
No,
fine.
Bill, we are answering questions for Adam, who's talking about a housing trust. What I want to do is I want to connect you with one of our homeless services people so that you can explain to them what you are expressing now. But right now,
Harbor Interfaith is on there. Save this man's
okay,
life.
so can somebody from Harbor Interface?
Bill, you can email me. I'll drop my email in the chat for you and my number.
Thank you.
Okay,
You're
thank
welcome.
you.
And send
Any other
some,
questions? Any questions for
please.
Adam regarding the trust?
I have my hand up.
Go ahead, Jackie.
Okay, the reason I put my hand up is I just wanted to, you said that Ronson said we would advocate. We're going to be deciding how effective the trust is going to be for all of the South Bay. The triggering action, I don't know if you mentioned this, Adam, I'm sorry if I missed it, is that 4 jurisdictions have to agree to join the trust. If less than 4 are interested, that doesn't necessarily mean it won't happen. It just means that the COG probably will not be involved. So there's a lot of iterations on how this is going to play out. And we're not advocating anything until we know that it makes sense for our cities. And so we hope you'll follow the work of our Housing Trust Subcommittee, and we'll be bringing back updates to the board and to this group. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Jackie. Grace, go ahead.
Just really quick, I think Jackie started answering my question.
Okay.
But I know the Gateways has a trust now, and I remember that whole process has, I'm sure Ronson, you're talking to them, but are there things we can learn from them?
We've
As-
modeled our trust on what Gateway has been doing. I mean,
Oh,
that's what we're sort of looking at that, and Adam is really good about, Adam, I guess you were involved in that, weren't you? I'll let you speak.
Yeah, I formed the Gateway Cities Trust, and I'm currently the trust manager for the Gateway Cities Trust, and also the Orange County Housing Finance Trust.
that's why you look familiar.
And trustworthy.
Yes.
Thanks, Grace. Roberto.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. Just a quick plug, as an advisory committee member, I just want to, echo the importance of the trust for the region. I work with a lot of development deals, and gap financing is so critical and a missing component. When you're developing a property, I like to refer to it as the 7-layer burrito, because there's so many sources of funding that go in, and the gap financing is the one that really helps them get over that hurdle. So I'll be advocating for it on my end, definitely, but I just think it's so important for the region, so we can meet all our goals. Thank you.
Thanks, Roberto. Okay, I see no other hands up. Okay, so let's move on then. We'll move on to number 6, which is Measure A and La Casa funding updates. So we have Ronson and Miranda.
Great. Actually, Grace did such a good job covering a lot of what we wanted to talk about. So I'll just go ahead and, I also wanted to share that, in our presentation, we had some stats about the metrics and goals of Measure A. But I just want to share this, since the LA Times came out today, they have an actually really good article about it in today's paper. So you can read about it there. There's quite a lot, so I don't want to take up too much of everyone's time to go through all the different goals and metrics. But it's all in the Times today, and I thought they did a really good job of summarizing everything. I wanted to go ahead and present our local solutions fund allocations for this is our plan for 25-26 fiscal year. Let me skip that part actually and just go straight to the allocations. Really good job of from Miranda and Addie putting this together while I was on vacation. But we are currently knee deep with the county, and Clifton's here, talking to them about fine tuning what we need to fine tune to get our statement of work approved and get everything ready so that we can get started with Measure A on July 1. For most of our funding, and just for those who don't know, for the past, I'd say about 6 years now, the county has given what they call like a local solution. It used to be called an innovations fund, and then now it became a local solutions fund. And this is like the allotment given to COGS to use for our cities. And that funding has grown from about $600,000 a year to about $1.2 million to last year it was $2 million. And this year we have about $3 million for our 15 cities. Traditionally, we've also used our allotment in the unincorporated areas in the LA City portion of our jurisdiction as well. And so it's not a big sum of money, $3 million. Just to put that in perspective, Measure A is a $1 billion funding source. And so out of that, we get $3 million for our region in terms of direct funding. Also, to put that in perspective, it costs about $2 million to run a shelter. So we can't just spend all this money into one small shelter. So we have to get creative and find programs that all of our cities can benefit in some form. And so a lot of what we're funding is sort of carryover from our Measure H funding. For example, our Beach Cities Case Management Program. We also have, we've been funding the homeless court. This is still a little bit up in the air because I'm talking to Redondo Beach and Hermosa Beach exactly what they want to do because they run a homeless court and they also have an alternative crisis response program that needs funding as well. So I'm still trying to figure out what's the best course of action there, but we set aside some money for those two programs. We are also funding the Hawthorne Intensive Case Management Services, and we will also be funding a new position at the Access Center. They're getting about 200 people a month through the Access Center, and so Dulce needs some help, and we're looking to provide her some help. We are continuing to fund the Inglewood coordinator position. We are going to be funding a Gardena. We've been funding Gardena coordinator position, but we're also now going to also add some additional support there. Gardena actually has this great rental subsidy program that the city offers to its constituents for the rental arrears. And so they get quite a lot of volume too coming into their it's not really the access center, but to their kind of to Diana and what she does over there. We are going to be funding torrent shelter operations as well as some maintenance costs. We are all continue to fund our client aid flexible funds. We have a budget line item that any city can participate in. It's to lease motels and SRO beds. Currently, Redondo Beach takes advantage of this program, and we're talking to other cities who may be interested as well. Our shared housing into employment program, very successful program. It's all a very expensive intervention. These are group homes, and they include a peer support navigator to get people jobs. So it's a very expensive intervention. It's a very good example of how, this started off in Manhattan Beach, and also the Gateway Cog had this program. And Manhattan Beach liked it so much, they asked if we could take it over, and then we took it over, and then now we're offering it to all of our cities. And a lot of our cities participated in this program. So it's been very successful so far. We're also looking to contract out for a document specialist to help with things like applications, housing applications, as well as maybe applications to the care courts, but just to take some of the paperwork burden off of our case managers. We're also looking for a regional housing retention specialist. This is like for folks who are housed, but may need some additional support or check-ins. We want to contract out for that as well. If there's any nonprofits out there that are interested in contracting for these positions, let us know. These are two positions that we will be opening RFPs for. Housing focused case management. This is this is partial funding for a program of 6 case managers. This is what we do. This is how we contract with WLCAC for some of the areas that don't currently have case management coverage. These include cities like Lomita, Lawndale, as well as some of our unincorporated areas, and as well as the Harbor, Gateway, and Wilmington areas of LA City. And so there's 6 case managers, and it's divided between WLCAC and St. Margaret Center. And we also are splitting now this housing specialist position between this funding bucket and another funding bucket, but that is basically Miranda's position. And then we have some set aside funds to administer all of this. And so that's basically it. We also have some Measure H carryover funding that we were going to be using for our time limit subsidy. And we all also in talking to Inglewood about additional programs that we may fund through Roberto and his team as well. So that's what we're looking to do. This is going to our board on Thursday, and hopefully our board will approve this this action plan. Any questions?
Paige's comment too, and I was thinking it as well. Did you mean to be sharing the spreadsheet while you were going through all of that? Because it was still on the LA Times
Oh,
page.
yeah. Sorry about that.
So
Yeah. Oh, she interrupted me.
you were on a roll, so I didn't want to.
Okay. Well, let me
Didn't want
share
to
it
cut.
then. There you go. Yeah. So that's how it looks like. Any questions? Oh, I see Bill.
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, so this is new funding that we're getting from Measure A, correct?
It's Measure A funding, and it's an increase of what we're getting from Measure H.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. Because I was looking at this, and we're certainly, I would say peanut butter spreading this across a whole gamut of areas, obviously, right? Which is, I think, a good thing. Then going back to your LA Times article on metrics, how are we going to measure the effectiveness? I mean, at the end of the day, is it the, homeless counts, or what's your thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the metrics is to decrease street homelessness by 30%. And that's a great question, Bill, but just to put that in perspective, we've done 15% the past 2 years. And so that goal is a 5-year goal of 30%. So so the metrics are going to be based off of it's not going to be based off the homeless count, but it's going to be based off of some of the numbers coming out of the HMIS system. But I think if we use the homeless count as a barometer, we should be easily beating our street homelessness goal. Just for everyone to know, in our 15 incorporated LA cities, we now, because of our performance, we now have less than 1,000 people on our streets. So it is a very attainable goal of functional zero. And so if you look at this annual target of 500 people, and we know there's inflow and outflow, but we can achieve functional zero in the South Bay within 5 years is my desire.
Okay, and then just my last observation, you mentioned the care court. I'm on the LA District Attorney's Homeless Advisory Board. So if there's anything we want to, bring to that advisory board, I'd love to have that discussion.
Oh, great. Yeah. I'm actually talking to Judge Gilbertson who used to be the homeless court judge and is now the judge on the care court. And so she had some really good feedback and interesting feedback for me about the care courts that maybe I'll share at some future date. But yeah, that's good to know that you're on that task force. It's very interesting. I know El Segundo presented right to that task force maybe like a month ago with their patches program. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what the DA is looking to do in their field of homelessness. We know he's toward our homeless courts. He's a supporter of the homeless court. So if we can maybe roll out the homeless court to more of our cities, I know our cities want that. The Lawndale mayor just asked me a question about the homeless court and how Lawndale can participate in that. So I know there's interest, from Manhattan Beach, other cities about the homeless court. So it'd be great to see if the DA wants to do more on homelessness.
Okay, thanks. Sharon?
Hi, Winston. So, as you probably already know, LASPO is ending the Home Safe program for seniors as of the end of May. Have you considered providing a program that would help the seniors that are like behind on their rent and need an additional support? Have you thought about implementing a program that would help seniors?
Yeah, from what we understand from the county, is that they're working closely with the state to continue the home safe program in some way. So that's one. Um, I'm not holding my breath there though. And so I actually thought about using our TLS program I don't want any seniors becoming homeless because the home safe program is ending. So even if I use my TLS program as a way to buy us some time before the state and maybe the federal government or the county can put together a comparable home safe program, I'm willing to do that.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Cliff, go ahead.
And then I think, Kathy, I think we have yeah, I don't think the number of people home safe in Spot 8 is huge. I don't think it's more than 3 dozen people.
There's 16 in our area, Ronson.
Yeah.
There's a few more in San Pedro, Harbor City, Harbor Gateway that we could add, but in our 16 cities, there's 16 people right
Okay.
now.
Yeah. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, that's why I asked for the numbers, Sharon.
Okay, I'll get them to you, Kathy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Cliff, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, Ronson. Let's see, you mentioned that if organizations are interested in writing or for funding opportunities, that you're open to that. Would that include faith-based organizations, and what would be the criteria for, qualifying?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, specifically, we're looking for folks that can help us with the document specialist as well as the retention specialist position. So, a faith-based community, if someone in the faith-based community who's also has experience doing that, I think we'd be interested in contracting that out. So the idea would be for example, the retention specialist, if the city of Torrance got someone else through our TLS program or whatnot, then we would then activate that retention specialist to meet with that person, once every 2 weeks or so. So that's the idea. And then we also can, contract with faith-based organizations if they're interested in, say, like our TLS program or using client aid and things like that. So definitely.
So could you send me something where there are a couple of people that I have in mind that I could send them something and would just basically give an outline and basic criteria in terms of how to be considered?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know we have something geared towards the faith-based community, but let me think about it and then maybe like Miranda, you and I can sit down and think about like what's the best way to get folks involved with that. Yeah.
Okay, Ronson, thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, Miranda, what'd you have to add?
On La Casa stuff. So they had a meeting March 12th and also just recently last week at the March 12th meeting, they approved some bare bones metrics. I think in that article that Ronson is showing kind of gives an overview of that. HRNA advisors have been hired as consultants to do strategic and like staffing planning. RCOG, SBCCOG, as well as Gateway, and St. Gabriel have had a meeting with them just to kind of figure out what they're doing and how the cogs are going to be involved moving forward as we start talking about how the La Costa pass-through funding is actually going to be distributed and utilized. So that's still something that's a work in progress. They should be presenting their strategic plan at the next La Casa meeting, which is, I believe, May 14th, so in a few weeks from now. And we'll be having some more conversations with La Casa as it pertains to like all the eligible jurisdictions that will be receiving funding. So hopefully we'll have some more updates soon about how that process is actually going to work to receive those funds, what are going to be the expectations for COGS and anybody else who receives that pass-through funding, how we're going to be measured, all those things. So yeah, short timeline for them to figure things out, but the ball is rolling and hopefully we'll have some more like concrete answers on actual like programming soon.
Okay. Any questions for Miranda?
I also just want to say, just really quickly, we're also going to get a big chunk of money from La Casa, and that's something I'm working on. And a lot of that is going to go, oh, not a lot, but like I'd say like 40% of that funding is going to go towards prevention, which is rental arrears. And the cost of prevention money is limited to about 6 months. But the way they define prevention is pretty broad right now. So these include your typical prevention, I'm about to be evicted prevention type cases, but also includes people that have been evicted or are already in their cars, or maybe they're in a motel, but they just haven't accessed a system shelter. Those folks are still considered prevention as well. So there might be also additional rental dollars coming our way for folks in cars and motels, or who might be housing insecure because of the home safe program ending. So that's also potentially something that we can maybe talk about in a future meeting that I'm currently working on at the CASA.
Okay, we hope we get that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you're on a roll, so why don't we go to legislative updates?
I think is Stephanie still on from Telu's office?
Steph, are you still on?
Give me a second. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes. Hi, everyone. How is everybody doing?
Good.
So my apologies. I didn't have anything prepared right now. I'm sort of just covering the field here for Janet Turner in her office, who I believe everybody or the COG is at least familiar with. I don't have any immediate updates right now, but I will go ahead and leave my email on here for folks if they wanted to touch base with our office and get anything like that. For any folks interested, I'm happy to send out an email with any updates coming directly from our office. I know we just spoke recently at one of the SBCOG meetings and gave some updates, but I'm happy to provide those to folks who are interested. I'll go ahead and drop my email and contact information in the chat. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Stephanie. Appreciate you. Anything else under legislative, Runson?
Let's see. Anyone else from a legislative office?
No, I don't think so. Didn't see any hands. Okay, well, I guess we can move on. How about Jackie?
Actually,
Roberto has his hand
Oh,
up.
wait. Go ahead, Roberto.
Thank you. Yeah, just on the legislative updates, I think it's important that I point out some federal stuff that's happening that might impact, jurisdictions around the country, actually, for the Housing Choice Voucher Program. So during the COVID era, the Congress approved a program called the Emergency Housing Voucher Program. And in March, we received notification that the program was going to sunset earlier than what was originally anticipated, which was 2030. Their updated sunset date is 2026. So basically, this means folks that were housed, homeless folks that were housed, could potentially be losing their vouchers in 2026, which would impact the local region and people experiencing homelessness if the federal government doesn't come up with another plan. There's also talk at the federal level about term limits with the Housing Choice Voucher Program, consolidation of housing authorities. And a lot of them are unofficial, but we've been hearing a lot of rhetoric around it with the new administration. So just want to put that out there so that folks are not blindsided when they see stuff happening in the months to come, especially considering we're waiting for the president's new budget and whatnot. So thank you.
Thanks, Roberto. Those EHV vouchers are going to affect a lot of people here in LA County for sure. Grace?
I think Grace has her hand. Go ahead, Grace.
Yeah, I think it's a question for Roberto. I was on another call for another state. Don't ask, it's not a whole nother conversation, but I heard about perhaps like CDBG funding is also being looked at differently. Have you heard anything? Or because I know that the cities in that state were really like concerned.
Yeah, typically CDBG and home funding's usually on the chop block. As far as we know, it's going to be fully funded or just marginally impacted for this coming budget cycle. But yeah, it's typically always been on the first to be on the chop block. So definitely keep an eye out for that.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay. I see no other hands, so we will go to Jackie. Jackie, how about the COG?
Well, I wanted to ask, Stephanie Hernandez is from a federal office. Is it, I don't know which office.
Office of Congressman Ted Lieu, California
Oh,
36.
still Ted Lieu. Okay, great. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, so the COG has a couple of things going for it. First of all, we have our board meeting tomorrow night. And at our board meeting, we're going to be talking about our energy efficiency programs, but also this being Climate Month, we're going to hear a presentation about some of the impacts in the region on climate change and what's been going on. And it's a sort of a series that we're doing that we're going to be trying to come up with some of the things that are happening and then what we can do about it. We also have a debriefing on our General Assembly. And for any of you that happen to come to our General Assembly, we hope that you will have filled out an evaluation sheet or let me know how you liked it. We got very good evaluations, so that was nice. The big news at the meeting will be we're going to be recommending that the board approve a sale of our South Bay Fiber Network. The reason why this is so important is that the new owner of the South Bay Fiber Network is interested in expanding it throughout the South Bay over not immediately, but over the next years, and taking it to businesses and taking it to disadvantaged communities, and really providing a platform that will be a service to all of us. So we're excited about that, and hopefully there'll be more to talk about. Under homeless services, I did want to say, I don't think Ronson mentioned this, that he distributed an article from, it was a news station, excuse me, from Redding, way up in Northern California, that mentioned that the Board of Supervisors were talking about their homeless program, and they mentioned Redondo Beach's Functional Zero and the Council of Governments. And so we've made statewide impact, and that was pretty exciting, I thought, to hear us being talked about in Redding. We are going to be also bringing the information on the budget that you heard to our board members. And then we're going to be talking a little bit about the Housing Trust and where we are. And then the other big news at the COG is that we are going to be moving. And so we're going to be asking for approval of the lease And we have to be out of our current place on June 30th, and we're hoping to be able to move in. We're going to be on 2 floors, so we're hoping to be able to move in on at least 1 floor by July 1st. So more on that. If you have to come to the COG after June 30th, please make sure you know where you're going. And so you'll hear more about that. The one thing I did want to mention, I talked to Annie about it, is a lot of our groups are going to hybrid meetings where you can have like maybe twice a year or every a quarter or something. You could have some of you that would like to meet in person can definitely come. I mean, we could do it for every meeting, but at this point, this is a totally online meeting. If anyone is interested in hybrid meetings, please let us know. We would be more than happy to try to accommodate that on some regular or irregular basis. So I think that's it. We're preparing for our fiscal year is coming up. So we're preparing for a new fiscal year, and things seem to be going very well for us. And luckily for us, we don't take a lot of federal funds, or we don't take them directly from the federal government. So we only have 1 grant that's been affected so far. And that's it.
Thanks, Jackie. And Ronson, thanks for leaving our footprint all over California. We appreciate it. And let's go to number 9, LA County CEO Homeless Initiative updates. Do we have Clifton?
There. Pretty quick update. I've been working closely with Addie and Miranda on the development of the COGS SOW, which is going quite well. Couple of important dates. So come April 28th, we're going to look to finalize that SOW. So once you guys send it back, hopefully we don't have to go back and forth in this whole revision process. We'll be able to finalize that on the 28th, and then we'll send the SOW back to you all by May 1st to get signage and hopefully get that signed. And then our goal is to have our signatures on it and by June 1st, and then be able to execute that contract by June 30th. I think earlier there was some discussion about being able to kind of track the effectiveness and sort of, around this work of homelessness. What we've been very intentional about and sort of strategic, based on the guidelines from Measure A, which really put a focus on transparency and accountability. As we work on these SOWs, and Addie and Miranda can attest to this, the Measure A goals are included. So as programs are being developed out, those programs need to be associated with a specific Measure A goal, as well as have association with target metrics from ECRA. So there is a real, very consistent effort to ensure that there is program effectiveness and that dollars are being utilized as it pertains to Measure A and some of the bodies of work from these various tables. So just wanted to present that out to the group. So we look forward to continuing this process and having those SOWs finalized and contracts executed by June 30th.
Any questions for Clifton?
No, just big shout out to Clifton and all the hard work he's doing behind the scenes to making sure this new Measure A funding is not as hard as we can make it, and just try to make things as smooth as possible.
So did you hear that, Clifton? He's going to try to make it harder on you.
And Camilla from the county's office as well. They both worked incredibly hard and provided a lot of guidance and support. So we're super appreciative of our team there.
Yeah, and Clifton's also a Carson resident, so good to have someone in our backyard helping us out.
Yes, I have credibility.
And accountability.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be all of our objects for today. But does anybody have any announcements to make that they would like to make for us? Maybe something that we should know about that's coming up and we need to attend? No? Well, I hope everybody had a great Earth Day.
Hey, Rodney, this is Alex.
Hi, Alex. Go ahead.
just FY, for example, on the CDBG question,
Yes.
in Hawthorne, we are anticipating about $200,000 decrease in the CDBG funds for us. So there is kind of like a decrease coming up on the pie. So yeah, just
Okay, so yeah, I think everybody will be watching their CBDG funds to see what happens with that. But hang in there.
yeah. Take care.
Okay, everybody, go
Final
ahead.
question. I'm sorry,
Here it
Robbie.
goes.
Just wanted to ask if, and thank you, Robert, for bringing up the EHVs. I think that's something that at least when I was at Rainbow, we supported a lot of our participants with EHVs. But I'm wondering if, Robert, you've seen anything from the Inglewood Housing Authority, or if anybody else has heard of anyone receiving those notices already for now I'm at NADD, so we're assessing like any communities that have received those and just trying to interpret those.
Yeah, so because it's preliminary, we haven't sent out notices to families yet or landlords on this topic. I mean, there's a long runway. We have until 2026 to come up with a plan, or we're hoping that HUD comes up with another funding increment to continue to fund those vouchers. Otherwise, each housing authority has to plan for a way to kind of offboard those vouchers somehow.
Okay. I think what I was referring to is like as the housing authorities, those had received any, but it seems from your response that there may not have been any notices sent out to housing authorities yet.
Yeah, all housing authorities have received the notice on March. I forget the day, but everyone received that same notice.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing no more. I appreciate everybody and thank you. I noticed our group is growing. We're at 3 pages now. So we're glad that like Ronson and the team and everybody just throws out some really great information about our homelessness. And congratulations to Addie again. But with that, we'll stay adjourned until 18 June for our next meeting. We stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rodney.
Thank you. Ronson, thanks for starting the meeting for me.
Thank you very much.
Thanks all.